Hey everyone, I'm Alex and this is Big Al Books. Today I'm going to be making a video that I know that I shouldn't, but that I'm going to anyway. And it is all about the books that I am most excited about reading in 2018. So this video is pretty preposterous because I'm going to be showing you 30 books. And I only set my Goodreads reading challenge at 75. So I think it's a little absurd that I've planned out over a third of my reading for a whole year in advance. This list is going to be broken down. We've got 10 classics that I want to read, 10 novels, 5 short story collections, and 5 works of nonfiction. So let's get to it. To start off the list of 10 classics that I'd like to read this year, we're going to move way back in time. I'd like to learn more about Scandinavian mythology. So to start off, I will definitely have to check out the Poetic Edda. This is a collection of poetry by an unknown author, and it contains most of what we know about early Norse mythology. I'd also like to get around to checking out Beowulf, which is another kind of classic about a Scandinavian hero. I'd like to read Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I'd like to read Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. The only thing I've read by Jonathan Swift so far has been his charming little pamphlet about eating babies, so I'm excited to see what else this charming mind is going to produce. I would like to read Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I tried reading Pride and Prejudice when I was in high school and I really did not like it, did not finish it, and I've kind of written off Jane Austen ever since, so I'm thinking I should at least give her another chance, so I'm thinking this is where I'm going to start. Another British female author that I need to read is Elizabeth Gaskell, and I would like to read North and South this year. Okay, moving on to France. I would like to read some Émile Zola, and I'm interested in checking out his Rougon-Macquart series. It's like a series of 20 novels that all revolve around generations of these two families. I'm not sure if I want to start off this series in chronological order with the first book, The Fortune of the Rougon, or if I want to start with a more well-known book from the series, like The Kill. So if you've read any books from the series and know a good place to start, I would appreciate any recommendations there. Moving on to Russia, we are getting to the part of the video where I'm going to start butchering author names, so bear with me. But there are actually 2 really short Russian classics that I want to read this year, which, when does that ever happen, right? That's amazing. So I'd like to read Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. As well, I'd like to read One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And the last classic that I'd like to read is not very well known. This book is called The Meias by Eca de Queiroz. He's a Portuguese author, and this is a book from the 1800s. It's got comparisons to Tolstoy and Balzac and a lot of other European classics, but it's just not as well known, and it seems like it's some kind of family drama, so I am looking forward to checking this one out. Moving on to a slightly more contemporary list of novels that I'd like to read this year, the book that I'm most excited about reading is The Wizard of the Crow by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's a Kenyan author who translates his own works back into English. And this is a pretty big book. It is a fantastical satire that is about a fictional, corrupt African government, and it has comparisons to Salman Rushdie and to The Master and Margarita. These are all things that I love, so I'm hoping to really love this one as well. I'd like to read Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. Back in 2016, I was totally blown away by her collection of short stories, and I've been meaning to read her novels ever since, and I haven't, and I gotta fix that. I'd also like to read 3 novels by Samuel Beckett. This was on my list last year as a book that I wanted to read, and it just didn't happen, so gotta fix that this year. I at least will hope to get around to like the first novel in this collection, Malloy, because I need some modernism weirdness in my life. Speaking of weirdness, I'd like to read Blood and Guts in High School by Kathy Acker. She's often described as a very postmodern punk rock author, and you can see flipping through this book that it looks highly unconventional, so I feel like this is a book that I'm either going to love or hate, but I'm excited to find out which way I will feel about this. I also want to read Love Medicine by Louise Erdrich. She's an Ojibwe author, and usually I find myself reading Indigenous authors from the north side of the Canadian border, but I'd like to read some more Indigenous authors from other places in Turtle Island as well going into 2018. Another book on this list is Stoner by John Williams. I think I'm just perpetually put off from ever picking this book up because of the author's name, as John Williams just reminds me of the cheesy and derided film score composer, so I need to put aside my disdain for the name and just give John Williams a chance. Another author I'd like to start reading this year is J.M. Coetzee, and I'd like to start off with Disgrace. Next up is The Slinks by Tatiana Tolstaya. This is a dystopian, post-apocalyptic work. It's not a genre that I usually love, but I've heard great things about this book, and it's been compared to Pale Fire and A Clockwork Orange, so I have very high hopes. The next book I have very low hopes. This is Dunbar by Edward St. Aubyn. This is the latest in the Hogarth Shakespeare series, which I haven't read any books from that yet, but Edward St. Aubyn has to somehow retell King Lear, which is like Shakespeare's greatest play, so how do you do that? I feel like he doesn't stand much of a chance, but I'm excited to see what he does with the story anyway. And the last book I'd like to read is There But For The by Ali Smith. She seems to be such a booktube darling. Everyone is loving her seasonal quartet. The only book of hers I've read before is How to Be Both, and I had kind of mixed feelings about it. So I want to read some more of her work before I get into her latest stuff. So I'm hoping this one will go a little bit better for me. I like the premise about a guy who is at a dinner party and just goes to the bathroom and never leaves. So hoping to enjoy this. There are 5 short story collections I'd like to read this year, the first one being What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. I put this on my list last year, didn't get around to it, but Raymond Carver is such an American master of the short story that I feel like I have to give his work a try. I'd like to read The Doll's Alphabet by Camila Grudova. These short stories are apparently very strange and surrealist. I'd like to read Things We Lost in the Fire, Stories by Mariana Enriquez. She's an Argentinian author, and her short stories are apparently gothic and dark and twisted, so I am there for that. This next book was totally a cover by. This is The World Goes On, Stories by Laszlo Krasznahorkai. So I really don't know much about this book, but the shiny rainbow cover just really spoke to my soul. So I hear that these are kind of mysterious and mind-bending, so I'm looking forward to exploring these stories. The last collection is going to be a reread for me, and that is the collected stories of Lydia Davis. This is such a cute edition of her work, and I have such fond memories of reading these stories for the first time. Like, they are so charming and strange and delightfully random at times. Some of her short stories are just really short, so sometimes they're only a few sentences long. There are a few more in this collection that are a bit more expansive, but Lydia Davis has such a quirky sense of humor and an interesting mind, so I'm really excited to revisit these stories. The last 5 books are some nonfiction books. The first of these is The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. Everyone who's read this book seems to have only amazing things to say about it, even though it's about a very depressing topic. I'd also like to continue to read some more nonfiction by James Baldwin. Last year I read Notes of a Native Son. This year I really want to get around to The Fire Next Time. There's Stolen Continents by Ronald Wright. Take a guess what you think this one's going to be about. Also, I'd like to read The Land We Are, Artists and Writers Unsettle the Politics of Reconciliation. This is an anthology. It looks like a wide variety of content, so I'm hoping this is going to be an engaging read. And then there's The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, a French feminist classic. And there's one more bonus pick on here. This is a giant collection. These are the complete works by Michel de Montaigne. He's a French author, kind of credited of creating the essay. So this is a book that I'd like to make a dent into, but it's massive and I'm not committing to reading the whole thing in 2018. So that's why it's not officially on the list, but I am hoping to at least make an attempt into reading this book. So that's it for my ridiculously ambitious 2018 TBR. I hope that I won't be looking back on this video a year from now and crying about how little I ended up accomplishing, but you never know. So let me know if you've read any of these books, and please let me know what you're excited about reading this year. So thank you for watching. I've obviously got to go start reading this giant mountain of books, and I will see you next time.